We get a brand new mock draft from Ryan Wilson. This is a 22 mock, and you might notice the order of the teams there is different from what their records are right now. We're going to ask Ryan about that in just a second, how they figured the order. But number one has been Kayvon Thibodeau for much of this season. Matt Corral, the only quarterback in the top 10, going number 7 to the Washington football team. Let's get Ryan Wilson in here. He joins us along with Brady Quinn and Danny Kanell. Ryan, first off, how do you set the order for the mock draft right now?
Well, before people get angry, and they typically do every week on Twitter when this comes out, it's reverse Super Bowl odds brought to you by CBS Sports line. So direct your anger towards them. I figure at some point we'll do, the draft order as we get probably closer to the midway point of the season. But that's what we're working from right now, Chris.
Okay, gotcha. So we don't expect the Lions to have the worst record in the league.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the Lions you think would be a shoo-in right now for the number 1 overall pick, right?
They're feisty, though, Brady. They're feisty. They might pick up a couple of wins. I guess reverse Super Bowl odds, that's where they get it from. We saw Matt Corral, number 7 to Washington. Ryan, you also have Carson Strong, the quarterback out of Nevada, to the Steelers at 17. And Sam Howell back into the first round. Why did you decide to send him to the Lions?
Well, Jared Goff actually played really well for about 58 minutes yesterday. But at the end of the day, he's not the long-term answer in Detroit, and probably, truthfully, nowhere if you can't make it in Los Angeles. Sam Howell, look, I'll be honest, I don't love him as a first-round pick, and that's just the reality of the situation based on how he's played this year. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of Jordan Love in that the year before, 2018, Jordan Love had all his playmakers, had his offensive line. 2019, he tried to do too much. Last year, Sam Howell had the running backs and the wide receivers. All 4 of those guys are now in the NFL, and he's struggled. But I think what's going to happen, we see it every year, Chris, teams overdraft quarterbacks because you need quarterbacks to win, and he snuck his way in there to the bottom of the first round. The Lions have 2 first-round picks. I wouldn't take a quarterback with the top 5 pick, and I think we all agree the Lions are probably going to have one of those top 5 picks. So maybe you take a gamble at the bottom of the first round on someone like Howell on the chance that he makes it all come together and he can play at a high level once he gets to the NFL.
2 trains of thought here with Sam Howell. I think you look at someone like Kenny Pickett, who decided to come back for an additional year at Pitt and is absolutely thriving, so much so that maybe we can start talking about him potentially being a first-round guy. At least maybe now talking college football, he's up for the Heisman. Maybe that's Sam Howell's path. Or because of how weak this quarterback class is, maybe he says, I'll come out now because I still have a chance of getting drafted relatively high. And it's probably not the worst thing. Now, granted, the Lions at 29, that doesn't work out too well for you. But if you're getting drafted at the back end of the first round, usually you go to a pretty darn good team. And so maybe that actually works in your favor if he's not the guy taken in the top 10, like Matt Corral in this case. So it'll be interesting to see what decision Sam Howell makes when it's all said and done.
I was going to hit on some points that Brady did too, because I agree with him. I think this quarterback class is really lacking anybody that you say, okay, this is a surefire, home run franchise quarterback, including Matt Corral. I think he has some question marks as well. He is who I would have the top pick, right, like Ryan does here. Carson Strong lacks a little bit of mobility that you might like to see. But my question, and Brady alluded to it, is where's Kenny Pickett? I would personally take Kenny Pickett over Sam Howell as far as an NFL prototypical quarterback. Maybe because he's older, he's 24, he's a 6-year guy. Maybe you say, okay, we've already seen the max of his development. There's not much more upside in him. But from what we've seen out of him this year, with less talent around him, he's putting up just as good a numbers as Sam Howell put up over the last couple years. I think Sam Howell's been exposed a little bit without some of those weapons he had last year, and with a system, an RPO type system that really kind of exploits him somewhat and some of his inefficiencies as a top-tier quarterback. So it'll be fascinating to see what this quarterback class looks like. Every year I'm blown away because quarterbacks are overdrafted. I have a feeling, though, this year it might actually play out where the teams and the GMs look and say, you know what, we're going to hold off because this class is so bad.
When sometimes that's because of what else is out there. You could have a situation where maybe Russell Wilson doesn't want to come back with Seattle. But could it be Aaron Rodgers' final year in Green Bay? There's a number of quarterbacks that could fall into that where these teams are more focused on veteran, proven guys who are a little older as opposed to that quarterback draft class.
We saw how important a wide receiver can be with what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing, pairing Joe Burrow with his former college teammate Jamar Chase. The first wide receivers off the board are from 14 to 20. At 14, Garrett Wilson. At 20, Chris Olave. Ryan, they are teammates at Ohio State.
Their teammates in there are very, very good. And this guy didn't make the first round this time around. But another name to keep an eye on, Jameson Williams, who had to transfer from Ohio State to get playing time, and he's just tearing it up at Alabama. But Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, they have been great their entire career at Ohio State. They continue to ball out. It doesn't matter whether Justin Fields is their quarterback, whether they have a freshman quarterback. They have played at an extremely high level. I have Garrett Wilson going to the Patriots, a team that does need a playmaker. They added a ton of guys in the offseason, a tight end and some wide receivers, but they still need a bona fide playmaker from a guy, Mac Jones, future Hall of Famer, of course. And then they have the Dolphins taking Chris Olave because Tua, don't laugh, Chris, because Tua Tagovailoa actually played pretty well yesterday. But they have Devontae Parker, they have Jalen Waddle. They're going to lose a couple guys in free agency whose contracts could be up at the end of the year. And I think you just keep surrounding Tua, if he's your guy, and we'll find that out, with playmakers and hope he continues to develop. He showed glimpses yesterday. I still have questions about him long-term in terms of health. But I think there were some bright spots in what we saw from Tua in a game they probably should have won against the Falcons.
It will be crazy to imagine the first three wide receiver taken would be both Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and maybe Jameson Williams too now, the transfer from Ohio State to Alabama, because he might run the fastest 40 of all three of them. But I'm with you on Garrett Wilson being the first wide receiver taken. I think you look at his skill set. He's got a little more explosion to me than I think Chris Olave, a little more of a stronger build too. The only concern I have is he's had a number of kind of drops in some bad spots, but again, you really can't go wrong. Olave is super smooth, never drops the football. He's feisty. Both these guys blocks their tail off too in the run game. There's not really any holes to pick at. It just comes down to what kind of build, what type of guy you're looking for, maybe even their personalities from some of the interviews. But bottom line is, this is a talented wide receiver class, in particular just looking at Ohio State and all those studly guys they got going on there, and maybe even guys who left the roster like Williams to go to Alabama.
Yeah, they're so well coached too. They're guys that can step in immediately, and we're seeing rookies like Jamar Chase and others come in immediate impact. I think that's the benefit you get with these guys who've been groomed to play at the next level. They're all spectacular. They're all fast. They're all great route runners. They're smart football players. So I'm kind of jealous when I watch C.J. Stroud out there just tearing up teams, thinking, man, look at what he's working with. But it is spectacular.
Is Stroud going to end up winning the Heisman?
I mean, I think there's the potential shot because of the stats. The problem, I think, is you're going to have people who look and detract from wanting to vote for him because he's got Wilson, he's got Olave, he's got this tremendous offense around him. I think you might look in a year like this at another guy who's also got good stats that may be just the best player on his team or who you feel like is the best player in the country.
All right, Ryan, you got the mock draft first round, just the first round only at CBSSports.com for 22. And there is a running back in the first round of your class, Isaiah Spiller. And he goes to the Cardinals. And, gosh, the Cardinals offense, so fun to watch already, and Spiller can do it all.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. And I made this mock draft up before the games yesterday. So Chase Edmonds and James Conner were just running through the Texans defense. I don't know if that tells you whether they're good or not, but they were certainly getting that running game going, of course, with Kyler Murray. And the Cardinals aren't a team with a ton of needs, so I figured why not make that offense more explosive? And Isaiah Spiller gives you that. He can certainly run the ball. He's played at a high level last year. He's done it this year for a Texas A&M team that had a surprising win over Alabama. He can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. He's actually a pretty good blocker, so he's one of these guys that comes in right away and contribute. You take him at the end of the first round, so you don't make Pete Prisco angry. And there's not a lot of depth this running back class, and there could be the situation where none go in round one, but I think there's probably a better chance one running back goes instead of something like four quarterbacks in round one.
I like the player. I don't know I like the fit for the team. I'm not sure that's a huge necessity for them, given they got some older players on the edge. Edge rusher will be a premium here. Wide receiver, too, with the age of a guy like A.J. Green, who's been a nice compliment to DeAndre Hopkins, even maybe to replace Hopkins. And I know they've gone to Kirk, Rondale Moore in the second round in previous years, but you still need that bigger body type wide receiver. So those are a couple other positions I could see for the Cardinals here. And then I hate to tag on a guy like Pete Prisco, but I just think with what we're seeing in the NFL right now, you probably aren't going to see a lot of teams once you have to draft a guy and pick up that fifth-year option and pay him a bunch of money before he necessarily proves himself and can stay healthy. So that's at least what I'm thinking with this one. I'm not sure we're going to see any running backs go in the first round this year.
Yeah, unless you're a generational type and kind of a unicorn like a Christian McCaffrey, who even the Panthers are having struggle to stay healthy, or an Alvin Kamara type back who can, run around and make plays like a receiver. I would doubt, whether you take a reach for Isaiah Spiller here. I love him, love the player, and he probably is the best running back in this class. And he's actually still had an amazing amount of production considering they've had a new quarterback they're breaking in Zach Calzada. He's still physical. Got a lot of tread on his tires, too, as he's taking a lot of carries there at College Station for Jimbo Fisher's squad. But as you mentioned, Ryan, he can catch the ball in the backfield. I like him. I think he has a nice career. I probably wouldn't see him going this high, though, into his NFL. All
right, full mock at CBSSports.com from Ryan Wilson. We're going to get a new one each and every Monday right around this time for you on CBS Sports HQ. Our thanks to Ryan Wilson, Danny Kanell, Brady Quinn, Larry Hartstein as well, joining us here this hour on Football Happy Hour on HQ. Pick Six podcast, latest episode today is a betting preview for tonight's game. Picks and props for the Saints and Seahawks. Your daily NFL picks and fix with Will Brinson.